So today I'm finally showing you how you two can be snatched and looking like a baby Bratz doll. It only took months, but I'm here. And this is just like my drag face infusing beauty with sort of doll-like type features. And I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong way when it comes to drag, because absolutely no. But with this style of makeup that I'm doing, there's definitely a balance you need between your canvas and what you're putting on in order to get that impactful but beautiful look without it ever being severe. For me in my drag, I'm definitely working against and with my very hooded eyes. I have a Frankenstein forehead and I have full cheeks. So I definitely try to just look, see where the peaks are, use them as a guide, and just pull everything else upwards. With drag, it's a lot of like you taking it upon yourself. So hopefully this video could be really informational. Is that a word? So to start my look, I always like having my brows as a guide for like where I'm gonna go with my eye makeup. So I like sketching everything out with some creams. I'm using a mink stick from Anastasia with a little teeny brush. I basically start the start of my brow at like the very peak of like my Frankenstein forehead, take that arch up basically to the center of my eye, and then take the outer half just straight out. I'm going for a really brow lift type of face, so I don't want my brows to be impeded by the excess skin with my hooded eyes, so I always use like that peak of my brow to my advantage. And I'm a huge perfectionist, so I could be here forever just carving them out. But the thing is, I'm using creams so it never messes up my brow cover, which I love. I basically carve it out with a lighter foundation color and then go in with a little brighter of a concealer underneath. Once I'm pretty good with the shape, I've tweaked it enough, I start patting that foundation color underneath where I kind of concealed to have some product down there. Because you'll see later, I kind of use that to blend with my eye stuff. So for the base of my eyeshadow, I start with like the pomade from Kat Von D. Using a pomade like this for a base is just ensuring that you have major impact of color on the eyes. Otherwise, for me, like just using powders or like, no, it's just not for me. I'm not good with eyeshadow at all. Powders alone just look dry always to me. So this really helps. If you saw photos with this makeup or like other looks I've done, I really incorporate this kind of trick. And with the eyes, as you'll see later, I really like to leave that inner part open. So I take the blue right along pretty much my nose bridge, kind of like that hollow beneath your little very front of your brow, and just gently like swoop it out to my temple. And then just real quick, I'm using a fluffy brush to blend like that foundation I dragged down with the pomade just a little bit because we love to blend. Then setting that blue with a powder. If you're gonna use a cream, like always set it with something, and everything just look like you're way better at like doing makeup than you are. Then I set the brow bone with a white. And then I'm gonna take like 15 minutes to carve out that cut crease. For me, with cutting my crease, mostly like my concern is sort of like opening the inner part of the eye. Even when I do liner and all that, I kind of like to leave the area bare. So I like to round that out, extend that part, allowing the highlight there to sort of begin the contouring of my nose and be the guide for where I'm gonna go with like liner later. So yeah, it's just like finding the harmony in all of it. And of course, anywhere I laid a cream, I'm gonna take a powder. I took that white shadow from the Divine palette over that concealer. And then I start in on my liner. For me, I really try to be as thin as possible with the liner. I try to keep it thin. I try to keep it just big enough on the outer edge so you can see it against like my hooded eye when my eyes relaxed, you know, but I definitely don't want a huge line there because I just want it to snatch the face up, not be super heavy. Just some like advice: don't be afraid to use a makeup wipe to clean stuff up, or concealer like my liner. It's hard to nail it the first time, especially with drag. You're playing with shapes and all that, so yeah, don't play yourself. It makes life easier. That's why I really love going in on the eyes first, so I can kind of get the more precise things out of the way. And then I took Velocity from Sugar Pill in the outer corner. And then I started taking the liner on the inner corner, the smallest bit I can. I did it pretty slow so you could see. Everyone's eyes are different, so this is hard for me to say like what you should do, but I basically do the slightest bit I can to sort of just make that sharper on the inner part, and it definitely gives me like a doll look. But just keep in mind, it's like everyone's inner corners are different. The skin there is like really just like difficult for me. Like at first I would do it so big, but just don't think about it. It's pretty simple. Now for foundation, I always gotta prime with my Tarte primer. It really just like helps me out in areas where like I do crease up. And then the rest of my face, I'm going in with a couple different Makeup Forever sticks. It's like 445, 415. The shade range jumps around. It's so sad, but these are really beautiful. And that 445 I could take all over. And I sort of start my highlighting with the 415. And I'm not saying you have to spend on like, you know, $50 foundation stick, but I will say if you're doing like your drag complexion and you want everything to be, you know, blended, beautiful, make sure that shit is creamy, because we don't need any like dry, matte, miserable, tugging situations. I'm just looking out for you. No. And also for blending, I use a dry beauty sponge because it doesn't move around the product too much. I'm not trying to go for like the most natural, least bit of product on the skin. Like I need impact, but I just like that shit to meld things together. So I just use that shit dry. And then I'm basically building up the highlight. I've been playing with like different techniques. I saw like the Etienne video with like Nikita. You know, he's bomb and I want to look like snatched. So there you go. Now for contouring with my Sensual Skin Enhancer. Again, girlies, we're going creamy. Taking that like basically just like up my cheek there, and I kind of like looking at different angles, like is it pulling down, is it look droopy. I like to sort of cut through my cheek, not like use where my natural contour is as a guide, if that makes sense. And I pat that product in with like this Real Techniques brush, which to me, if I'm not using like a beauty sponge and I need to like dab and press stuff in, meld things, I love using that one. So yeah, I'm basically using that same Sensual Skin Enhancer, the same like kind of dabbing technique around my face. Nothing too difficult. But in case you don't know, just be mindful when you're blending the contouring. You know, on the cheek, you want things go upwards a bit. On the jaw, you kind of make sure they go downwards a bit. You want to make sure everything in between is, you know, blended enough, but you know, you don't want everything to get too muddy. So that's just like my pro tip. And once I'm satisfied with all that, I take the Sensual Skin Enhancer like to highlight, and I just use that hugged right against my nose. Very cute. Stole that from Valentina. Very like impactful. And again, drag that up the sides of my cheek where I highlighted, and that also kind of helped pull up my face a bit more. It just helps everything carve out a bit, and everything is just diffused together, so you can't really tell it's so carved. And then I took like just a cream lipstick as some blush, taking the Sensual Skin Enhancer around my nose, using where I already put that shadow as a guide for my nose contour. And now I'm setting everything. First I start off with like the Peach Perfect powder from Too Faced. I bought this and I used to use it all over, but sweetie, that's like a brightening type of powder. So now I just use that in like my highlight areas. And then I set the rest of my face with the Patrick Star powder, and then I start highlighting with like the Hourglass powders. They're all right, like whatever. And then I'm just fleshing up my cheeks with the NYX little palette. Like, I sort of started with bronzing on my cheeks, and then following where I already did with the creams, I start contouring with like deeper, more ashy shades. I'm just like, if you see, like, I'm kind of specific about placement, so I guess that's like something to notice that I can't necessarily describe, but also is why I keep writing home how important it is to understand like the canvas you're working with. And then I did bake my face with a bit of that Too Faced powder. God, now for my lips, like, I've had people really compliment me for having a big top lip, which I don't really have one. So if you see the way I'm lining, for me, like, that inner middle part where my cupid's bow is way too curved for me to get away with overlining in the center a whole bunch, the way a lot of people like encourage people to. So I overdraw on like the outer parts of my top lip. It looks like a lot more lifted, a lot more plump without like looking gross and stiff. Oh my god, you see how like I get away with putting gloss because I overline like the outer corners? Like, my mind. Pretty much done. I'm taking like the Emery highlighter now. Spoiler alert, like, it's not that cute. And then like reinforcing that little inner corner, following what I already did. Again, like, do the difficult parts at the beginning so like you don't get handprints on your face. You feel me? So honestly, the lashes that stay were not that cute. I'm using like, you know, normal girl lashes. They're boring, a little too wispy for me. Okay, for DragCon, what I did was I took like a wispy Ardell lash as the first lash, and then the outer corner I like stacked some like weird stiff Morphe lashes with like some 301s chopped up, and it was just like really beautiful. You don't need a fat like heavy lash with this look. It's about like the outer corner. Unfortunately, these are a little too wispy to give me like that really dolly effect that I prefer, and like these lily lashes, their band is like way too thick for my eyelid. If you see, my eyes like fucked up a little bit. But yeah, I use like a softer lash and then like the outer corner on like the liner to really reinforce the snatchery. So that was my video. You know, makeup is fun and like a journey, and there's a lot to learn and share with each other, so I wanted to be detailed with this one. So I hope it helped. It's just drag, it's just makeup, have fun with it. And if you recreate the look, tag me. Okay.